Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. Welcome to another busy November. We'll have an update coming out this weekend with a whole new slate of live events coming up to top off our November. And then, of course, it won't be too long before we're rolling into December. But right now, we are definitely thinking about climate change, not only here on Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, but also globally with COP27 happening right now in Egypt. So there is no better crew to have join us today than our team from Hearts in the Ice, Hilde and Sunniva, who are two seasoned polar ambassadors and citizen scientists. Hearts in the Ice was created in 2018 as a global platform for education and social engagement, connecting students, scientists, manufacturers, environmental organizations, and all who care about the health of our planet, connecting everybody into a conversation around climate change and ways we can all be part of the solution. So Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants classrooms are no strangers to these two polar explorers. We have followed them since September 2019, when they spent a total of 19 months living in a remote trapper's cabin called Bumsaboo in Svalbard. So 140 kilometers from their closest neighbor. They took part in all kinds of amazing citizen science programs with organizations around the world like NASA and Scripps Ocean Institute. And of course, they brought classrooms along for the ride the entire way, sharing their stories and solutions, but also hearing what students had to say about what's happening with our planet. So it's sometimes hard to pin down Hilde and Sunniva as they have been traveling recently to various conferences, workshops, and events around the world, but we have them here with us now. So I'm going to bring them in live right now. So here is Sunniva joining me in Canada and Hilde joining us from Norway. How's everyone doing today?
Oh, we're doing good, Joe. Just nice to be landed back home for a few days, actually.
Absolutely. I could absolutely see that. Per usual, it's great to see the two of you, sometimes together, sometimes apart. But we would love to catch up a little bit on what you've been up to.
Yeah, as you said, we have been busy, and it makes me think of that. Where's Waldo? It's like, where are they now? We have been traveling a lot, which is not sustainable, as everybody would know. But we've been very selective in where we've been going. So the last time we connected with you guys live, we were in Churchill on Tundra Buggy One, which is a buggy equipped with satellite technology, so we could do broadcasts from there. We were hosted by Polar Bears International, and we are Hilde and I are ambassadors for them, which it's an absolutely wonderful thing to say, because our family is growing, right, Hilde? It's like, it's not just Hearts in the Ice anymore. It's really Hearts in the Ice, and we're going to partner with the Jane Goodall Institute. These partnerships are very important for us because they help us broaden the reach and sort of the ways people can participate in this rather polarizing topic, which we call climate change. But this experience up in Churchill, this is the Polar Bear International House. It's open to the public to help people understand what's happening to the 800 plus polar bears in Churchill, and why they're so dependent on sea ice and the changes that have been happening over the last 30 years, especially up in Churchill. So really important for us. That's literally, Hilde, you were looking in the eyes of this one,
Yes.
staring up at us from in the buggy. And this could not have been more different than our experience with the polar bears in Svalbard, because there we were armed and we never walked alone. We had over 100 polar bear encounters up at Bumsaboo, and in Churchill we had 20, but we got to wake up with them and we got to go to sleep with them outside. So it was a powerful experience just to observe them and watch them in their habitat from sunrise to sunset. So we're really grateful for PBI for hosting us, and we'll have more on all that later. But I'm going to toss the baton down to Hilde, who's way up north.
Yes, I'm back up in Longyearbyen after all this travel, and as Sunniva said, we are careful with where we are going, and also most important, what kind of purpose we have for going there. So for us, it was very educational to be around polar bears in such a gentle way, without any, I don't know. It felt like it was very it was no disturbance to the polar bears, so it was in harmony with the wildlife. And also the way they use this platform for education to the guests coming, and also for us to hosting us for speaking to all of you young kids out there. So that was exciting. But now we're so exciting to have Monica Sharma with us, and we love to share her with all of you. We have had the pleasure of being on her course called Sea Change for a couple of, yeah, she also wrote this book. So it's very insightful how we all can become superheroes in our daily life and be leaders for climate change and sustainability. So Joe, maybe you will introduce her even more.
All right, excellent. Well, we really enjoyed our live event from the Tundra Buggy with PBI and you guys, of course. And, you know, we always enjoyed our live events from Bumsaboo and hearing the latest polar bear stories. And one of my favorites was always when I think it was Hilda, you opened the door and it banged into a polar bear that had curled up right at the door and was having a little snooze.
Yeah, no, they were checking us up and see if they could find any food. They didn't, but they were curious around our hut, and that's fun most of the times. When we have 3 months of complete darkness and you have polar bears lurking around your hut, it could be kind of exhausting. But we managed to harm no wildlife, so we were there for 19 months and did not harm any wildlife. So that's a good thing. We lived in harmony and peace, immersed with this beautiful nature up in the Norwegian Arctic.
All right. Well, I'm going to tuck the two of you away for now and bring Monica in to join us. Then we'll bring everybody back for a big Q&A session at the end. All right. So as mentioned, we are pretty lucky to have Monica Sharma joining us today. Trained as a physician and epidemiologist, she worked for the United Nations for more than 20 years. She currently engages worldwide as an international expert and practitioner on leadership development for sustainable and equitable change. And she's managed to generate some pretty great results worldwide on select sustainable development goals. So let's bring Monica in live with us right now. Hey, Monica, how are you today?
Thank you so much, Joe. I'm good, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. And thank you, Hilde and Sunniva, for inviting me.
All right, excellent. Well, Monica, I know that you have a bit to share with us, so I'm going to let you take over for a bit. I know you're going to share a few slides as well, and a special treat, we'll share those slides with all the classrooms who registered as well, so they can refer back to them later.
Thank you, Joe. I wanted to share what I share with every adult worldwide, what I'm sharing with Hilde and Sunniva. So what am I going to share with you today? Stories of young people worldwide who make the change that adults are also wanting to do. And I thought the word superhero would be great. You know why? Because the superheroes that we see in movies are usually killing people, are usually destroying things, are always overusing the fossil fuels that we know we should not be, such as James Bond and always with a gun and all the rest of it. So we need new superheroes, and that's you. And that's me. And that's Hilde. That's Joe. That's Sunniva. It's beyond age. But this we know, that there is something passionate in young people that is adventurous. So I'm going to share stories of adventure with you. And the stories apply to your work and your caring for polar bears, but they are not from the polar bear region, okay? So I'll begin with a story. And the story really is about a superhero, Arturo. So I worked with a colleague of mine in a place in USA, and that place had children from homeless shelters. Right? So they were not very income rich, but their hearts were very rich. And when I went through the program, and the first thing I did was to sort of share with them what it means to be a superhero. And I remember there was this little boy, he said, you know, I am actually a bear. He drew a bear. All of them drew diagrams of what they would like to be, like pictures, and they stuck it on themselves. And he wanted to be a bear. And I said, what are you going to do for the world? What do you really care about? He said, I care about love. So I want to be hugged. That's why I want to be a bear. But his little brother was 3 years old, and he was in the next classroom, and he ran in and he tore the bear. And this boy started crying. He was all of 9 years of age. And we fixed the bear for him. But what was great was also Arturo. He was 12. And when he went through this program where he discovered who he is, he said, you know what? In our locality, there are lots of people who come in to involve us into having drugs. And I have decided that I'm not going to do it. I'm going to resist it. I'm not going to allow that. And you know what he did? He sort of, at the end of a school day, they would get together. And then he had mothers come and knit around so that none of the people from gangs could get to them. Now, what does it take for a 12-year-old to stand up and say no to something that doesn't work? In his heart, he must have felt fear. Like, what will they do? But look at his thinking. He organized it in a way that was outstanding. So I'll take you then to a place in California, because that was a place that was in the South, in Texas. Now I'll take you to California, and I'll take you to a man, a young man. He was all of 16, Jordan, who was actually in a remand home because he had done something that was not okay. He was in a gang. And he learned these tools that Hilde and Sunniva are learning also and practicing. So what is the first tool? What do I deeply care about? For everybody, everywhere. And do you know that what he did was to go and rescue people, young people who were working in this place that was, peddling drugs, doing all sorts of things that are not okay. And it was like an adventure for him. Courage. It isn't the absence of fear, Courage is knowing who I am. And then being able to go ahead and do what I care about. So today, when you heard Hilde and Sunniva said, you know what? We are very careful about travel. Yes, we need to travel, but we need to be conscious. We need to be aware. So it's the same thing for you and me. Are we aware of when we destroy diversity in our world, whether it's people or planet? Because the mindset, your mindset, my mindset, that loves and embraces animals, all sentient beings, is the same mindset when I embrace everybody. So the first thing is to know what I deeply care about. Then there is a second thing that you all learn in school, and that is how to design something, how to create a project that you work on. And that project could be on anything. So I will take you to India now to share a project from a group of young people who all go through this program, but they go through it along with STEM education, science, technology education. And the person who's designed this along with me is a geek, is a person who's created 1 billion chips with Ericsson and has now decided to serve humanity and children and nature. He loves animals. He adopts everyone around that little animal. By everyone, I mean animal everyone, and whose mother's not doing that great. But you know what these kids did? They learn who I am and how to design differently. For example, they have projects related to robotics and math. And I remember they have a festival every year of all the projects they made. And they invited me when I was there in Auroville, Tamil Nadu. And I remember I was supposed to create something out of pieces they had. And, I just couldn't get it. I just couldn't get it. I tried once and I tried second time and I tried third. Then one of them came and they said, Grandma, by the way, in many cultures, it is wonderful to be a grandma. It's wonderful. It's not like I need to be young all the time. So it's like, they said, after I tried 3 times, it's okay, Grandma. It happens. We'll fix that for you. But the beauty of the work they do with STEMland is, firstly, they know what they care about and they know what to change in the culture so that we promote diversity, so that we care about the planet. And so one of the young ones, for example, created a group, and what they decided to do was rainwater harvesting in the village. And these were young people who were in grade 5, 6, 7, and they learned math. They calculated exactly what was required. They created a tank. They created the pipes for it. They all got together and they had a project, but they had to design the project differently. So in this work, we design differently. What's the difference? We first connect to who I am. Then I activate my science mind. What you're doing with Hilde and Sunniva. I activate my science mind, but I activate it from my heart. I don't activate it from just reading. I activate it because I care. And when I do that, I do something different and meaningful. So let me share with you what that could be. And I'll take you to a different place. I'll take you to Singapore now. And this time, let me brag about my grandchildren. All grandmothers love to talk about their grandchildren. I have 4, and they are now in college. And this was in high school. And my grandson was in a Singapore American school in Singapore. And there was a boy who had come over from the Middle East. And he could not speak the kind of English they were speaking. And all the boys were making fun of him. And they were teasing him. They were bullying him. Bullying in schools. They were bullying him. In this work, one of the projects children take up everywhere is bullying is unacceptable. Teasing is unacceptable. So he stood up. It was his best friends who were doing that. And he stood up and said, sorry, we just got to stop it. If you went to the Arab states and tried to speak Arabic, could you? And then the bullying stopped, whether that's bullying of a child or treating animals without love at home, in the world out there, in the world of the meat industry, in the world of how we have games through animals in a way, or entertainment, which is so cruel. So what I do is what I care about, and what I do is how I design my project. So I'm going to show you a few slides. And you will get these slides, and it's exactly the stories I shared with you. So what is my first slide? My first slide is just the topic. You are the passion in the hearts in the eyes is about your passion, your gift as a superhero. So superhero has 3 things in our work that we do worldwide with children and adults. It has the same 3 things for adults. Number 1, I need to know who I am. And that's the word radical, the root of who you are, your kindness, what you care about. So what Arturo cared about was peace and harmony. So what do you care about? So write it down. What do you care about? For everybody, everywhere. Not just for your family and friends. For everybody, everywhere. Humans, all sentient beings. Then you have a gift. So as a superhero, you know who you are. As a superhero, you have a gift for our planet, for our humanity. And that gift is you can create a new culture in schools, cultural norms, stop bullying. You can create a new system, water in the village. And that's all based on universal values. And what's a universal value? What you care about, what you really care about. And you are a leader. So in this work, leadership is not the head of the school or the principal or the head of a college. A leader is a person who creates new futures, like those children did. That's you. That's what you're doing. So, good news for you. The good news is we have three intertwined attributes that research has shown, science, that when I have self worth and I apply it as dignity, I don't bully. Who did this work? Daniel Goleman does this work on emotional intelligence, which is very much what is done in SEL programs, social emotional learning. There's a second thing. You know, you all care about fairness. When it's so, if you're five brothers and sisters and your favorite thing is chocolate cake, and your mom and dad have made chocolate cake, and they give half the cake to one person, one of the siblings, and you get a tiny sliver, are you going to clap for your mom and dad? Of course not. You're going to say, hey, what happened to my share? What happened to my share? Now, there are many, many places and species that can't speak, such as the polar bears. I mean, they speak to each other, but they can't say, hey, what you're doing in the fossil fuel industry is not fair. And then the word that we use for changing culture is equity, big words. And then compassion. Compassion is a very strong space. I see suffering, I act. In the land I was born, that is India, we call that Karuna. And these are the three values that the superhero manifests, all the children I've worked with manifest in a way that I am proud of who I am. I manifest my greatness. This is a beautiful painting outside the UN. Joe introduced me as having worked in the United Nations. It's by Marc Chagall. And what the painting says is that, see, there are humans there. There's a world there. There are insects there. It's all one. And he made this painting as a dedication to Dag Hammarskjöld, who was killed when he was going to work for peace. He and all the colleagues were killed in a plane crash that we know was engineered by some people who did not want peace. Well, Arturo did, and so did my grandson, Vikram. They wanted peace in a very adventurous way, not peace like quiet out there. And so that these are our intertwined attributes. So what do you really deeply care about? Write it down, please. It's like, do you care about everybody, all sentient beings, living with fairness and equity? Do you care about that? Do you care about the planet? Universal values are who you are, your greatness, the essence of you as a superhero. Know it, explore it. It's a wonderful, wonderful space. And courage is not the absence of fear. I remember when we do a little exercise on fear, my granddaughter got up and said, I didn't know, Mima, they call me Mima, that adults have the same fear as we do. We don't want to be punished in front of our classmates. We don't want to be insulted and ridiculed. We don't want to be put down. So, yeah, adults, do you notice it? Just name it and let go and not challenge it. It's human. How do you feel fear, but still go in for your adventure? So it's like a roller coaster, right? When you have go on a roller coaster that's very speedy, there is a sense of adventure and fear, and yet we do it. So the emerging superhero, of course, knows who I am, but also designs for change, like all you heard the others. And then we do something meaningful mindfully. So the problem in the world is that people do good things. Like in COVID, we put on a mask and we have vaccines. We did good things. And in COVID, there were some people that didn't have food and we gave them food, and that was a good thing. And then some said, no, it's not good enough just to give food. We need to change the system of how we give food. So there were school children who went around and they did so much for each other during COVID times. There was a beautiful book, You Are My Hero, that was written up by United Nations, yeah, for children, and how to transcend biases and take care of people, because this place we had a lot of bias. And then we do things like leadership. But you can bring it all together. And Buckminster Fuller said, this is you and me as a superhero, an artist, an inventor, a mechanic, an objective economist. I know that sounds very vague. All it means is you know some things about money. And most economists really don't care about fairness. That's a very dramatic statement I'm making. Just like, well, let me withdraw that statement. Many of the economists that I know don't care about equity, that I know. Okay. But there are those who do, and they write books and they write articles and they care. And then an evolutionary strategist. You are an evolutionary strategist. You are that superhero. So this is all about me, Hilde, Joe, Sunniva, you, me. And so we say, do you know how to put these things together? It's actually very simple. I get to know who I am, what I care about. I work on a project, but I decide what will I change, because all the work you will do in this hearts in the ice is about creating change. And so the emerging superhero is, of course, who I am, the architect in me, and doing something meaningful that you care about. So think about that, because then you are an evolutionary strategist. I do something meaningful. And Chief Seattle, who cared so much about nature, said, when you know who you are, and your mission is clear, and you burn with the inner fire of unbreakable will, no cold can touch your heart. No deluge can dampen your purpose. So this is what I wanted to share, and I'm done with this. So here I am, back to you, and I don't know how to go back.
All
So
right.
to guide me how to go back. I'm not great with tech, Joe. How do I go back and get out of this slide?
That's okay. If you just head down to the bottom and click on your Google Chrome again, you should see the
Okay.
window.
All
And
right.
then there we are. Click on that
All
one.
right.
You're
I
back.
made it. Yay. Thank you, Joe.
All right. Well, Monica, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Not only the program, but also examples, where students have found success around the world. And before I bring Hilde and Sunniva back in, it leads to our first question, which is, this sounds like something you've been doing for a while, and you've got to meet and work with so many children, so many students. Do you have a rough estimate of how many students around the world have taken part in the program?
Maybe 5,000.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Because we reached, I would say that's an underestimate, Joe, because we've reached just through one project, which is HIV and AIDS, and we had youth worldwide work on, transcending homophobia. We had youth worldwide work together. And we reached 130 million people. So my sense is that's a gross underestimate. The people who took the program were 4.5 million. So my sense is it's likely to be 500,000, maybe even. I don't know.
Amazing, Monica. All right. Well, let's bring in Sunniva and Hilda back into the conversation. Welcome back, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Monica.
So interesting. Thank you. It's really easy to feel paralyzed by all the facts out there. And when we understand that we just need to start right here, like one good thought at a time, one value at a time, one project at a time, it's you do feel like you can actually make a bit of a difference.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
what I would say, Suneva, it's so right. When I am able to design on the conscious full spectrum model, and if I am 500,000 youth, and everybody does that, do you realize we are creating a new field? So actually, that one project is contributing to a global movement. I need to see myself as local action, provided I design it that way. My local action is part of a global movement.
Wow, that's magic. And also you reaching out to the kids and telling them how important it is for them to show up as their own superheroes and believe in themselves and understand how powerful they are, even if they are maybe 10 or 8 or 12 years old. They can all make a huge contribution in their community, in their classroom, amongst their friends. It's powerful.
Hilda, usually we will work with children 8 and above,
Hmm.
not because it in a way this is complex, right? When you're dealing with polar bears, it's complex. It's got so many things built into it. So I
Hmm.
think when we are very tiny children, I mean, we love animals and all that, but it's hard for them to work this through. But children 8 and above, I have noticed, can grasp what we are grasping as adults,
Hmm.
and actually can make it out in a beautiful way. Um, I just want to say one thing on that. When I worked in Las Cruces in Texas with children from, and Arturo was there, we showed them the same film, A Story of Stuff. And we created in the room a different space for production, and we can map, whether it's polar bears or anything else, you map through science what's happening. The children were children of labor groups, like their parents went to work in the field.
Hmm.
They understood the systems and the cultural norms that their parents had to suffer much more than adults often do, who are not part of this, the suffering that we have, because suffering can be a space of
Hmm.
learning. So yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, to anybody who's tuning in, don't be shy to use that chat sidebar to send in some questions. But we'll start with another one here to get us rolling. And Monica, so many times I was a teacher in the classroom before I started exploring by the seat of your pants. And I'm sure Hilda and Sunniva have encountered this as well. Sometimes you hear people, students even say, I'm just one person. What impact can my one person's actions have? So I wonder if that's something you encounter and what your strategy is to kind of break that early.
So, Joe, it's a question every adult asks. And I usually, depending on what the situation is, I begin by playing a freedom song that India had, that Rabindranath Tagore wrote. And the freedom song is "Learn to walk alone when it comes to values." And then there's the other part to the song. And when you walk on the planet, you're never walking alone. Join hands, the word that Suneva used, in partnership. So the way that there are two thoughts behind this. First, to know that I matter. I matter because what I do matters. And the way we do it is, do you know what you care about? And that one action is an entry point, provided I know how to transform a cultural practice, a small cultural practice, provided it's not just action, action, action. If it's it's not how big or small my action is. The question is, does my activity transform a disempowering cultural norm? Like drugs, so once, and children can see that, and
Mm.
once I connect a specific activity like rainwater harvesting, a specific activity, and that was one girl who thought of it, and she garnered friends, and there were 5 of them, and they used science, they learned physics and math, it was a STEM project, and they went and worked together. So that then became on Facebook or whatever they have, LinkedIn, and or because LinkedIn is for professionals, and Sanjeev put it on. It became like so many kids started working on it. So in today's world, the technology for sharing is so powerful. And when I can share those, but always a conscious means intentional, full spectrum means who I am, how I think, and what I do, who I am, my heart, how I think, my mind, and what I do, my hands, then I'm strategic and I'm making the difference.
Mm.
Do I make sense, Joe?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think we do live in a really exciting time right now with technology where it is so easy to jump on and share, new projects, things that work, get feedback from peers in other countries who might be having similar issues. And then, you've got that global community where everybody can kind of work together and share ideas in a way we never could before.
Correct.
It's very interesting, Joe, what we are learning in this course. And so much of my view around what the course might be in the beginning was maybe a designing of the outside blueprint on how to solve our climate crisis. But no. The course could not be more different. It's really it's an inside job. And how important it is. And I'll give you an example. I was up in Churchill, and there was a fundraiser happening at the Polar Bear International House. And I had a man kind of corner me and say that electric cars are not the answer. And so he's not going to buy one. Anyway, it was a very, it could have been a quick thing for me to respond and sort of kind of do this. But that's not the point. The point was to find some commonality with him as a human being, and then try to understand where his viewpoint came from. So I actually ended up having a nice conversation with him. But we're living in a time where there's a lot of polarity out there. And it's really important not to engage in that I'm right and you're wrong sort of mentality, which is the reason why Hilde and I are in this course is with Hearts in the Ice, because we're out there a lot now on the stage, we're going to meet a lot of this resistance because people do have different opinions. But it's very important for us to understand that the work that we're doing is for a good reason, and we're doing it with a full heart and new tools. So it's never too late to go back to school.
All right. And I think that's really important too, is that kind of part where you kind of work at yourself, look at the values that are important to you. Because I think when other people see things being done for the right reason and being done with passion, I don't think there's anything stronger, a greater force that can influence people more than seeing things like that.
It's so true. That's why partnerships are key. Look at all the work we've been doing with you for 3 years, right?
Absolutely.
It's just astounding.
So this is an interesting question here. And I think this is probably from a class who maybe has joined in the past from Bumsaboo. And so they're curious about, did you see any differences between the polar bears in Svalbard and then the polar bears in Churchill? Maybe behavior differences or features or adaptations. Did you see anything different?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, well, the polar bears look exactly the same, and they are brothers and sisters with those that we have up here in the Norwegian Arctic. But what we experienced here, since they were all in this one spot waiting for the sea ice to sort of develop, we saw stuff that we hardly ever see up here in the Arctic. We saw big male polar bears and also female polar bears with cubs being on the same spot. And actually, the big males, as in the picture you show earlier, um, they are playing gracefully and carefully with each other. Like, yeah, of course, they're testing out their muscles and all that, but they are so friendly. And also, the polar bear mom with the cubs are not as afraid of each other or big polar bear male. So it was really, it's sort of a very different harmony. But in the second the sea ice form, they're all over the place and they're not friends anymore, because then they're fighting for the food. But just that tiny little time of a year where they're actually together and having fun, that was very different from what we usually see and what Sunniva and I saw when we were at Bamsebu.
So I think that fits nicely into this next question, Monica. Do you find that animals are kind of a really good gateway for students to get into the program? I mean, it's hard to find a student who isn't excited about animals and things like that. Do you find it's a good gateway to bring students into the program?
I do. In fact, there's a group, and it's led by two animal rights activists, and their names are Sajjot and Sarvesh, and the group is RTL Animal Rights, Animal Welfare, they say. And what they do, one of their activities is involving children in animals that are around them, like whether it's near a farm and what happens there, whether it's street animals that have been abandoned in many places. So it's the caring that is activated. And to me, it's so important, this question, Joe, that we need to use whatever we do. That's why the universal values, the greatness, it's caring. Now, in this project that Hilde and Sunniva are working, it's caring for polar bears. But I can guarantee you, if I took them to a place that where elephants were not treated well, in Thailand maybe or India, would they work for them? My sense is they would, because it's not the polar bear. And yes, it is. But the polar bear is the entry to show us who we are as human beings. So, yes, yes, please, anywhere, anything you do. And most young people love animals. So I think that's a beautiful place. And we don't think of one thing. As children or adults or youth, we are able to think of more than one thing. For example, I may love chocolate cake, but I can also like ice cream, vanilla ice cream. So, do I just like one thing? No. I can care about. That's the beauty of caring. Caring is not really topic specific, it's the breaking open of your heart. And when you break open your heart, and I break open my heart, I just break it open for humans, for animals, for polar bears, and for each other and my Mother Earth. I mean, many of us cry when we see people felling trees. That's a beautiful creature. The oldest living creature is the bristlecone pine. She or he, they are 12,000 years old.
It's interesting. Thank you for that, Monica. Good Morning America was live broadcasting up in Churchill yesterday from the buggy that we were on, and Alyssa McCall was asked by Michael, what can people do? Now that we love the polar bears, now that we love whatever it is that we love and care about, what do we do? And they're unwavering in kind of the direction that they head in with the answer. And one thing is the very thing that we're doing right here is talk about it. Very important to have the conversation. The second was get out there and vote. vote for the people in office that are supporting sort of the inclusivity and the protection and conservation of us and species and the earth. Vote with your money. Support those organizations like Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, Hearts in the Ice, Polar Bear International, the work Monica's doing. Support the organizations that are out there trying to create a shift, and then support solutions towards an energy shift. That's really important. We know that carbon emissions are bad, bad, bad. So what can we do to support things that are more sustainable and positive? So anyway, I just find that to be kind of pretty clear pathways to move forward on whatever topic it is. And start somewhere with falling in love with something.
Yeah, and if it's polar bears or elephants or humans, we're all in this together. So it's actually just symbols of the same problem. We're in this together, and we need to protect wildlife, and we need to protect people, and we need to protect everything, and be careful how we use the resources.
All right. And so, Monica, you talked about some of the steps with the program. And the one that I, really highlighted was leadership. So, the students start out kind of looking at themselves and what they care about, thinking about a transformational idea or shift in culture. But what strategies do you have to help them take that next step to become leaders?
So we have some tools and we have some strategies. So let me begin with the strategy. The first strategy is, Joe, what I just presented in that diagram, which I called conscious full spectrum response. So that students learn, firstly, discover who they are, their greatness. And I've seen worldwide, doesn't matter what culture, they can zero in on who they are. They know what socialized fears they have, like ridicule, or somebody is thinks I'm not good enough. The children know. Children 8 years and above, if we guide them, they know. So we begin there. We begin with who I am, because then I have a different kind of courage. I'm not trying to show off. I'm not trying to brag. I'm just trying to make a difference. And that space is very important, because in the materialistic world, we have too much propaganda. I call it propaganda and marketing on, things like I need to own 5 Mercedes Benz to be considered even worthwhile. The whole materialistic paradigm that we are driving young people and adults too, through our media and our marketing. So the first is to be able to know who I am, and to really learn to design differently. And what we mean by design differently is not how big is my project, is how do I think enough that when I do something, I ask myself a question: why is this problem happening? What is keeping that problem in place that I can't see? So let's take a problem that bullying in schools is a problem, and trying to keep up with the materialistic. Some friends have, let's say, are shopping in some fancy place, and I need to keep up with them. So this is what's happening in the younger world. So the question then becomes, who am I? And when I do a project, do I want to change one thing, just one thing that culture has? So I know that one of the things that has changed in the way kids address bullying is looking at who I am, and I want to change that system of bullying. Very young children start having best friends and then exclude others. Am I going to be the person who notices who's excluded and bring that person in? So what do I put in place? Practical things at home. I'll give you an example from someone who shared this with me from India yesterday. The US has a lot of issues around racism, right? And that's very important. But India has a lot of issues around caste. And we have, sort of created cultural norms to divide people, to divide people. So one of the cultural norms in rural India is we will not eat in the same around the same table, and we will not eat and drink from the same utensils. And this young person, you know, she was only 8. She asked her mom, "Mom, why is it that we do that at home when the people come to work? Why?" And she said, "Because I care about everyone." And there was a family that believed. She said, "But God made everyone the same. Why do we care about only a few?" She said her mother actually changed that practice. So young people can also change those practices. So yes, thank you.
Hmm. Beautiful.
All right. Well, I think a good spot to kind of leave on today is to think about hope, because I think that's a big message of Hearts in the Ice is, yes, our climate is changing, but there's so many stories and individuals and organizations who are working towards hope and a better future. So, Monica, I imagine there's too many stories for you to even think about kind of talking, but what fuels you each day?
I think the same. What fuels you, Joe?
Me, it's we've been doing this since 2015 now, and every explorer, scientist, adventurer, conservationist we talk to, they all share a common story, and that story is being inspired by somebody else, seeing their actions, seeing the work that they're doing, and that set them kind of into their passion, ignited a passion, and set them on their career path. So what drives me is trying to do that with as many students across North America and around the world, to spark those tiny little aha moments in classrooms.
So for me, very early on, I realized that when I break open my heart of love, something changes in the way I act. So I had like we all have different training. I trained as a physician. And one of the incidents I remember, which I wrote in my book, was the first patient who died when I was an intern. And I was taking care of her. She was the daughter of, she was working as a laborer, and she had a baby, 2.5 years old, out of wedlock. And, she had been abused. And she came, and every day she would say to me, "Please take care of me so that I can live till my baby can walk." And to me, I would take the baby back to the nursery, but she had an advanced stage 4 cancer. And one day I had the baby there, and she actually just passed away, and the baby was trying to wake her mom up, and the baby was only 2.5. And I just broke down in front of everyone. It was not the professional thing to do. But here is what I want to fast forward. And then, baby was adopted, all the rest of it. I was told I should not break down in front of all the patients around and all that. But when I was working at the UN, a very wealthy group of people came to say, "We want to serve where you're serving," doing the kind of work I was doing in islands around the world and in landlocked countries. So I said, "Sure." And then one day, one of them, who was extremely wealthy, billionaire, said, "You know what? I want to talk to you during lunch, and I want to bring my partner." And I said, "Sure." So they came and said, "We have a major problem. Our daughter is 20 years old. She is depressed. She's on medication. She loves animals. We've got every animal on our farm, from llamas to everything else. And she is extremely obese, doesn't like anything. Nothing matters." So I asked them all. I said, "When did something meaningful happen in your life? When were you like you went to bed knowing you really served. She said, when I was in college, I served in hospice. When you serve in hospice, you're working with people who are dying. You don't have any agenda with them, right? There's no agenda. You're just there to serve. So I said, why don't you send your daughter to hospice to serve? They came back in 6 months with chocolate and flowers. She's off medication. She transformed her life. So the only way I energize myself is offering my skills from that space, which is the title of your project, in fact. It is the title of your project.
All right. And Hilde and Sunniva, you have been in Churchill, you've been places like Iceland for the Arctic Circle Assembly. What's been kind of fueling you lately?
Yeah, personally, being around people who have dedicated their lives to a thing. Just meeting Steve Amstrup up in Churchill, who's for 30 years been studying polar bears, knows more about them than possibly anybody, and just it's sort of humbling to be around people, even like when we were at the Jane Goodall Institute, and understanding just Jane's mission, that she's out there, very active, and is not giving up because that's not an option. And so it really fuels me to be around people like Monica, who are working tirelessly to get people like Hilde and I to understand that we can actually do much more with what we have, if we apply the right sort of strategy to it. And it's just, I just feel it's amazing to hang around with so many smart people who do deep dives into the area that they care about, and that gives me a lot of a lot of pause.
Oh, Hilde, you've got to grab the mic.
I'm sorry. Yeah. To me, it is, as you said, Sunniva, being with I would say like-minded people, but also be challenged by others, and speak about what is my values, why I'm trying to show up and together with Sunniva be small superheroes like all of you on the call, to inspire people with our engagement. And also, Joe, you offering this platform that we can speak with so many kids at once, and we've done that we've actually reached much more than 100,000 kids now, which I'm very proud of. So I think just having this kind of life where we can actually feel purposeful, and I can use my heart and soul into all this, that fuels me.
All right. Well, this has been a great conversation today. I think it is so important that, we work with our youth. We encourage them to be superheroes, and we take back that term, like you said, Monica, superheroes. Maybe are a little bit wasteful, or like you said, we kind of think of the Marvel movies and things like that, but those aren't the real superheroes who we have all around the world doing incredible things and using their own talents. So it was an absolute pleasure to have you joining us and sharing that message with us today, Monica.
Thank you too.
Group
Thank
hug.
you so much. Thank you. It's been a
Thank
pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
All right. And Hilde and Sunniva, of course, we look forward to our next connection. Who knows where that will be and what adventures we'll get up to, but we always have amazing speakers joining us and sharing the inspirational, incredible work that they're doing as well.
Thank you, Joe. What a pleasure. And thank you, Monica. And we'll see you in Oslo in a few weeks.
Yes, in a few days.
Actually,
Okay.
Thank you so much, all. And
right.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. And we are going to sign off for now.